Welcome back to Proxy, everybody. And today I have Hayden Jones with me today from Japan, recent winner of a golden ticket for the GW Warhammer Championships. How you doing today, Hayden?
I'm doing great, man, and I'm really excited to talk about Guardian Battlehost today.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, it's a fantastic detachment, man. No one gave it credit in the beginning, including me. I'll be fully transparent here. I thought it sucked. A lot of other people thought it sucked. But you've really taken this thing as well as a lot of other, great players and just absolutely smashed with it. And I've had some experience with it myself. It is brilliant. And I'm absolutely sure that it could do some big dick damage into a lot of the new, knights and everything like that. I think it's a really good matchup into those really powerful meta armies.
Yeah, man. So like when I first read the Codex, I saw this one. I was like, oh, like this looks pretty good. But then I also read Ynnari and was like, obviously Ynnari is better, right? So I haven't won. I guess I played a RTT recently with Guardian Battlehost, and I didn't even win it. I actually lost it by 1 point. But like I did win all my games. I just got one less point than the person that beat me with did. But I am going to be taking this to like 4 tournaments in the next like 2 months. So one of them's a GT. So we'll see how that goes. But I would also say I literally haven't lost with Guardian Battlehost in any game so far. But that just before the balance data slate, like Ynnari was just kind of too good to pass up. And I
Right.
really wanted to guarantee like getting a golden ticket, right? So um
Completely
but
understandable.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, this is so counter meta. It's so good. And I don't think anybody like nobody's giving it credit. I think me and then there are a couple people, Jay, who he and I, and then also this guy his name is Lumaine, in our Seer Council Discord, like cooked this up maybe a few weeks before the balance slate was set to come out because everybody expected the Ynnari nerfs. Um,
Yeah, and those nerfs did hit hard. So I mean, Guardian Battle Host was, I think, one of the top dogs after that, as well as Sarah Council and Windrider Host. But
internet
I
turn off.
think
Sorry, hold on.
no worries.
I think my internet just cut out. My bad.
Oh,
I
no
was gonna
worries.
say another guy just won out a GT in Copenhagen uh with it. Like I think this is a tactical tourist video that came out like a day ago. So
Oh, interesting.
it's certainly making the ranks. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Two
did.
people did really well with it at
I,
GTs.
I think I did see that title. I didn't watch the video yet, but yeah, it seems to be doing pretty decently, and people are starting to catch on to it, which is awesome. So I think a lot of people are now, thinking like, what makes Guardian Battle Host good? So I figured what we'd do is I'd kind of pick your brain and get some insights about the detachment rules. What do you think of those? The stratagems, core enhancements, just basically go down the list so that everyone has a better understanding of Guardian Battle Host in general. Starting at the detachment rule, right? The defend at all costs rule. Pretty solid if you look at it just as far as a base rule for the army. You get +1 to hit if you're on an objective or your target is on an objective, and you get that for Dire Avengers, Guardians, support weapons, and Warwalkers, which is a pretty good range of units. How powerful have you found this in your games?
Um, it's actually amazing, and it's not really amazing for Guardians because like it's really much better for Warwalkers and Dire Avengers. I personally am not. I'm still on the fence about whether using Dire Avengers or not is the play because they're quite expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Guardians, also you're taking a Farseer, so you're already getting +1 to hit. It is funny to see opponents are like, "What do you mean you get +2 to hit?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, they're on an objective, and I'm also getting +1 to hit from the Farseer, so like doesn't your -1 to hit doesn't matter." But it's really, really important on Warwalkers, man, because you can actually run double Bright Lances on Warwalkers without like getting fucked over by dice because you're always gonna hit. And Warwalkers are like super important in this attachment. You need to be hitting with your Warwalkers, or else like your units are gonna do way less damage. The entire detachment is about buffing these shitty units to the max to make them really good.
Right.
So
Yeah, because Warwalkers have a hitting problem for sure, and Bright Lances, although they're typically considered not that great. Bounce lances is the funny term we
yeah,
use for them. Um, Honestly, the knight buff, the Imperial Knight buff, where the big knights got reduced in toughness but got more wounds, actually kind of helps Warwalkers because now they're wounding on 3+ versus 4+, and that's, in my opinion, a big boost. I know they're getting more
Yeah,
wounds in return, but I would take that any day if I can get some wounds off of something. Like, I'd rather have that than fail altogether, right?
very true. And like the biggest problem I had with Warwalkers is like you can't take both Bright Lances on them because they hit on threes, and then if you miss, you don't get the buff, and you just wasted your points.
Right.
But like now you're hitting on twos, so you're like very, very likely to hit. So yeah, it's a great the detachment rule. And I think people didn't quite realize that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I really love the detachment rule. It just makes everything in the army that you're going to be taking hit way harder. I mean, shoot, even support weapons. I mean, I guess we'll talk about those later, but, support weapons are typically like, not considered great, but in this detachment, they're really good.
yeah, I agree.
So when you're building an army and, you're building up your forces, what enhancements stand up to you or stand out to you as like necessary to take? Like you need this enhancement in your army.
So there's two that you absolutely must take for this fucking army to work, and they're really good. So it's chill. Actually, you don't really need the second one, but like I don't know why you wouldn't take it. Basically, the most important one is that you can infiltrate two guardians units. Like by far, that's the most important one. Because we'll get to later how you run the guardian units, but like you can abuse your opponents so badly if they don't have any way to screen out your guardians. Like they practically I don't even. I mean, I'm not gonna say they can't win, but like it's really bad in some situations when you can put a big unit of guardians right outside their deployment zone, and then protector of the paths. I mean, it gives you a 4+ on Overwatch if you're on an objective marker for 0 CP, which is great. I've been using it. It works on Dire Avengers, but I wouldn't take it on Dire Avengers because then you're gonna have to not take a sermon
Right.
to use that enhancement. But the biggest thing is I was using it on a Guardian Defender unit, which is really good. But I think that like I've not sure. It depends on if you're taking 3 or 2 Guardian bricks, basically. If you're gonna take a Defender unit or not. That's my opinion. The
Yeah.
other two, Breath of Vaul. I mean, if you have extra points left over, it's good. You just get to reroll the damage roll for your fusion guns and reroll the amount of attacks with the flamethrowers, which is just only the 2 Guardian flamethrowers in the Storm Guardian unit. Craft World Champion is also like another like, oh, if you have extra points, you just get 5 objective characteristic on your what it was called, the
Farseer or
Farseer,
Autark or whatever. Yeah.
which at 25 points is pretty expensive, so I wouldn't recommend it, but
Yeah. I was, when I first read this, when the Codex came out, I was baffled that it was that many points. And I was questioning a lot of my life choices at that point.
yeah, I don't
Um,
know.
I was like, I would have to be down in the dumps to really pick this enhancement. But yeah, if you have 25 points left over, can't spend it on anything else, then I guess you just throw that in. Um, okay, so you definitely take the infiltrators one. That's really powerful. I mean, even just being able to infiltrate one unit of guardians, that's, basically an 11-man unit because it has the platform in
Sometimes
it.
I do that, yeah. If
Yeah.
I really just need to screen my opponent and he's fast, I'll just straight up put an 11-man unit right in front of their face, and that's always good.
Yeah, it's
So
only 100 points and, I mean it's really good for the points. Okay, so the enhancements, two of them are really good. Um, one of them's auto take, but it's also the most expensive, the ethereal pathways. But you definitely want to take it. What about the stratagems, right? Because we have a number of stratagems here, and at first a lot of them seem pretty basic, but in combination with the units you're going to be taking, they're actually super powerful. So, what
I
what
think
are
these
your favorite
stratagems are
stratagems?
so OP, man. Like I think there's only like one that's like I don't ever use, but they're really good. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best one obviously is cost of victory. How have you used that stratagem in your games, and what would you suggest to players on how to get the most out of it?
So cost of victory, it's important. We actually, when we were starting to get into this detachment, we were trying to figure out like, can you revive? Because obviously you can attach a bunch of units to the guardian unit, and we were like, do they get the guardian? Oh, sorry. Well, I don't know why my discords keep on kicking me. But if you want to counter this list, you need to charge your opponent's low guardian units so they can't revive them. But this is actually a really complicated stratagem, so it's going to take me a second to explain it. But basically, you pick it up, and then you put it in strategic reserves, and then when you put it back down from strategic reserves, and this is at the end of your opponent's fight phase, that you pick it up, and then it comes back down, in your movement phase, right? You get to return all the guardians, which this is not like because you're using it on a unit that's still alive, you can do it as many times as you want. It's not like a one-time revive the squad. The squad still has to be alive. But the important thing to remember is if you join warlocks with the squad, they count as part of the squad. So if there's one warlock left in the squad, you can still revive all the guardians.
Oh, interesting. That's right, because they count as part of the unit and part of their
Yeah.
just starting strength.
So, but we're
Okay.
talking about the conclave, right? Not the character. But yeah, they
Right,
do
right.
count as a unit. And then it's the same thing with the support platform, but usually I'm taking the support platform if I'm running a support platform before I take guardians. Um, So, yeah, it basically there's a lot of ways that we'll get into that just make like guardian units really really hard to kill, and then you can revive them, and it causes a lot of rage to opponents. Who are like, oh, like I just spent my entire shooting turn trying to kill this unit, and then it comes back at full strength somewhere else on the board. Another thing that's important to know is that they don't have to be damaged at all for you to use it. Sometimes I've deployed them somewhere, pick them up, like turn one, right? You deploy them somewhere, and then you go first, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna pick them up and then put them down my turn two and deep strike them right in front of you. Or like if they go first, you can do it turn one at the end of their fight phase, and then not it's not deep strike, it's strategic reserve, but you can bring it in from strategic reserve turn one, even if they're not damaged. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Think about that with a D cannon or some warlocks, just fry something that your opponent didn't expect you to have to deal with. That's really, really powerful. Um,
absolutely, yeah.
Now, Blades of Azurian is one that you kind of were talking up, and I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, this sucks. When are you ever going to use this?" But it kind of makes sense that it would be here. One, because you are going to be taking Warlock Conclaves, which have
Yep.
flamers. So now you have pistol flamers. And it just says Guardian unit or Dire Avenger unit. It doesn't mean models,
It's not the
right? It's
guardian models, it's the
right.
unit, right?
Absolutely. So it's really freaking strong because even if your opponent tries to tie you up with something so that you can't use cost of victory to pull your unit back into reserves and revive all your stuff, you could just shoot them with pistols, right?
Yeah, I always tell my opponents, they're like, "Do you have fallback and shoot?" I'm like, "No, but it doesn't matter because I can just give my unit pistol." And they're like, "Everything?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm just gonna not retreat and just shoot you.
Which is better in a lot of cases because you're already on the objective or you're already scoring points somewhere. You're where you want to be on the battlefield.
Especially if you're on an objective, they charge you. When we get to this next warding salvos, right, where if the opponent's on an objective, then you get to reroll your wounds. Like likely they're going to charge you while you're on an objective, and then you're going to get to if you have the command points. This is a very command point heavy detachment, which is why for a while I was using an Eldark in one of my bricks just so I could get like the maximum amount of command points that you could possibly get for Eldar. Like you can just spam like pistol, reroll wounds, and then boom, like you just and if you have Eldrad, you're getting +1 to wound against the unit. I mean, and then you just pick it up. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. +1 to hit, +1, which also does work in combat if you're engaged, right? The +1 to hit.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Warding
Yeah, the
salvos,
Guardians melee on they hit on twos in melee.
yeah, which is actually
So
kind of crazy that Guardians could actually be kind of good in melee, like at least Storm Guardians, right? Like even Guardian Defenders a little bit with +1 to hit and then maybe +1 to wound with reroll wounds can actually put some good damage into some targets.
yeah, I think the unit has like 20 attacks. Actually, it's more because I'm like 99% sure the little shield thing actually gets close combat attacks. So I think it's 22 attacks. And sure, only like 4 of those have AP because you've got 2 power swords, but that's still like a lot of saves they're gonna have to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think it's funny that the platform has attacks. It's just in
Yeah,
there, dude. It's
my
funny.
opponents are always like, "Isn't that a token?" I'm like, "No, it's not a token.
Yeah,
It has 2
no.
wounds."
It is a thing. It's bashing the opponent like in the face repeatedly. Oh fuck, that's funny, dude. I always love that thing when it kills something. I'm just so excited when it kills something, man. I roll it separately in my games. I have 2 extra dice for that, and I see what it does. Because I'm literally curious to see, like, if my opponent fails one of their saves, I'm like, oh, that was the platform. Your Space Marine,
Pretty
your
funny.
ultimate warrior died to a fucking little piece of metal or wraith bone or whatever. Um, okay, so warding salvos. You were talking about earlier. Rerolls the wound roll if your opponent is on an objective, right?
Yeah. So obviously there's like a lot of counterplay from your opponent with this one, so it doesn't get used all the time, but like they're gonna have to be on objectives at some point, and getting full reroll to wound with like a unit that has that much damage output while also stacking all of these other buffs that we'll talk about. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
It is
absolutely.
opponent dependent, but like they have to get on objectives to play the game, so you'll get to use
Right.
it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the night matchup, right? Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights, a lot of people don't know how to play that. Well, honestly, this just makes your army so powerful against knights because you're getting +1 to hit. You're often getting +1 to wound because of Eldrad, and you're rerolling wounds. It just makes things like Warwalkers hit extremely hard into those targets. Units of Guardians hit extremely hard into those targets. I mean, you might not think they do, but with +1 to hit, +1 to wound, reroll wounds, even basic fusion guns with Storm Guardians can do a ton of damage to a knight.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, do remember it's only Guardians and Dire Avengers. You can't use this on Warwalkers or support weapons.
right,
But
right.
it is the unit, so like if it's a support weapon in the unit, then it's going to get to reroll the wound. So D cannons.
Yeah, D cannons,
You know.
which are also re-rolling damage rolls against Titanic units, which is kind of like a cool tech, I guess, for
Yeah,
the amount of
the
difficulty.
guy who just won this GT ran 2 D cannons, and I bet it was probably because he wanted to counter night meta.
Yeah,
I have 3 D cannons that I haven't used since the index days, so maybe we'll pull them out.
maybe pull some out, maybe pull a couple of them out. Yeah, I mean, I just had an interview with a guy from the channel, Mike, who ran 2 or 3 D cannons at his local event and just tabled a Night Army round 1 after
That's
being
hilarious.
after being basically laughed at for not taking fire dragons, and it was like, don't need them, guys. The big D, the big
Yeah,
D's got it.
that's another thing in this attachment is you don't need fire dragons. That's one of like I have if you're running a 3 brick list, you definitely don't need fire dragons. If you're running a 2 brick list, like you can run with just D cannons or you can use fire dragons. You don't need fire dragons in this detachment compared to like literally every other detachment.
Right.
So it's cool.
Yeah, I find that really interesting too because actually, I think if you take too many fire dragons in this detachment, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because of the just absolutely amazing value the rest of the army has as far as
Yeah, you're not
anti-tank
getting
goes.
any value from anything in the army when you're using fire dragons.
Yeah,
There's so much synergy like that can be combined, and the fire dragons aren't benefiting from any of it. They are still good though. So like,
yeah. No, very true. I mean, the other day I was using vibro cannons as kind of a troll, but I was surprised they did very well. I was like,
I
what the
always use
hell?
pyro cannons. They're great.
Yeah, vibro cannons, man. I was like, man, I'm gonna do a triple vibrator list and it's gonna be hilarious. But then my opponent was actually getting upset at these vibro cannons that were just killing everything. I'm like, man, what the hell? It helps when you roll like 4 5s and 6s for the attacks. But yeah, they're freaking awesome, dude. Vibro cannons are
Yeah,
good
I'll
in this
talk about
detachment.
them like when we get to the unit thing, but support weapons are really good in this detachment.
Yeah, absolutely. And this detachment's also tougher than most Eldar. Like it's not as tough as Spirit Conclave, but it's almost it's almost tougher in the ways that
Kinda
you
is,
need to be
yeah.
tough, right? Like you don't want to just sit there on objectives and have no counterplay, which is what Spirit Conclave basically has, in my honest opinion. But you have reactive stratagems to defend yourself. You have shield nodes, and then if your opponent does shoot you and kills you, you even have a stratagem for that. You have Vaul's Vengeance, right? So
Indeed.
let me ask you this, because I've never actually been able to get this off in any of my Guardian Battle Host
No,
games.
the answer is no. I've never used it.
Okay, you've never used Vol's Vengeance. Okay.
I did do it one game. It was because I was playing two Warwalker. I was playing 4 Warwalkers, and there were 2 and 2 squads. And you specifically, what I did was I charged my Guardian unit into like, I don't know, it was like a Soul Grinder or something, so they would die, so I could shoot it again. But like that's like super dumb and inefficient. So yeah, it's kind of like it's the only like bad stratagem in this attachment.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and in case you guys are wondering out there, it just basically allows a Warwalker unit from your army to shoot the target that killed your Guardian or Dire Avenger unit out of phase. So it's your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase. After they destroy a unit, the Warwalkers can shoot them. But it's super situational. Oftentimes, your Warwalkers may not even have line of sight. And then the other problem is it's often not even a target that's worth shooting. You know?
Yeah,
So,
very true.
yeah. And then lastly, Time to Strike, which is freaking amazing. I love anything that boosts Storm Guardians, right? So this is a Storm Guardian stratagem, allows them
Well, you also
to
forgot shield nodes, but yeah,
shield nodes. Yeah,
this one's really good.
yeah. Let's talk about that. So real quick though, shield nodes just gives you -1 to wound, right? It's like basically fortune. You know, it's basically the old Farseer power that you just use to subtract 1 from the wound roll when you're on an objective, right?
Yeah, it's important to note though that like it's kind of I don't use it too much because you already get that when you have warlocks in the squad.
Right.
So, but it is kind of funny if your opponent's like, "Well, I'm getting +1 to wound against that." Well, I'm like, "Okay, well, you're actually getting -2 to wound on it now." So,
Yeah, shield nodes. Sorry, buddy. That's funny. Okay, so time to strike. Storm Guardians. They're getting an auto advance 6, which is great now because we don't have fate dice anymore, so we can't really do that. So we get auto advance 6, and then on top of that, we get the ability to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which we advanced. So that's pretty insane. How many times have you used this, and how useful do you think it is?
I use it like almost every game and almost every turn. You can adding the +2 move thingy. I mean, you can like, and also you got to remember that you can infiltrate these units. So you start 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. You move 15 inches into their deployment zone, shoot and charge them with a unit that has like almost 20. It's almost a 20-man unit. So you can like what I do occasionally, like depending on how my opponent like deploys, is I'll just run it right in there and then just charge everything. And if you don't have fallback and shoot, then like good luck.
Yeah,
It's super good. And
absolutely.
I just being able to move that big ass unit that far is, and then also shoot and charge. And my opponents are like, "Well, does it give them assault?" I'm like, "No, it just lets them shoot." Yeah, it's the second best stratagem I'd say out of all these stratagems, just because it just like allows you to go so far with like you're going farther than like sleeping hogs, basically. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, especially if you consider basically being able to put tokens on them and consolidate
Hmm.
and pile in 6 inches as well, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it, the reason I think it's insane is because you can use it on an infiltrating unit.
yeah,
So, like, if you go first, I mean, it's going to be tough for your opponent to deal with. If you don't go first, you can still get across the board real quick.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely this and the cost of victory are why this unit or this detachment is very stratagem intensive.
yeah, yeah. Super powerful stratagem, and I love the fact that they specifically have something for Storm Guardians too. That just made me happy because I love those little buggers.
Storm Guardians are the bread and butter of this attachment. You're going to run a lot of them.
Yeah, they're really cool. Okay, so those are the stratagems. Really powerful set of strats. So what kind of units would you normally? We talked about this a little bit, of course, but what kind of units would you normally include in your army, or you know?
So the main characters, right,
Mhm.
we got are the Guardian bricks, which you have a Farseer, you have a Warlock, the character Warlock, Then you have the Warlock Conclave, and then you have a Storm Guardian, or you could choose to run a Guardian Defender. Just you got to remember that they're not getting the 5-up invul. And then also, obviously, you're running Eldrad. If you're running this detachment, you're running Eldrad. You won't have enough command points to do anything if you don't run him. And so basically, what that does is it gives your unit like -2 to charge, then also -1 to wound. Also in the bricks, you can add support weapons. I opt to usually run just the Viro cannons because they're 60 points. And because of how wound allocation works, like if your opponent chooses to shoot like anti-tank at you first, you take a Guardian. If they're shooting anti-infantry at you first, well, good, I have 5 wounds to take on my support platform. So you can allocate wounds to like make your opponent's damage do like less than it should. And then, I mean, obviously, the Farseer is giving you +1 to hit. You're already getting +1 to hit. Eldrad's is giving you +1 to wound. So you end up having like a very hurty unit with these Warlocks that have Destructors. I think it's like a 5d6 plus 10 shots that are going to end up being Strength 7 minus. Well, they're -1 for now, but and then yeah, it's a lot of attacks. You can make them reroll wounds, give them +1 to wound. Then you also have the Singing Spears, which ironically actually end up doing a lot when you buff them up with like Warwalkers and Shroudrunners. So yeah, the unit is just a huge Death Star. It kills most things in shooting because you've got so many different shooting profiles coming out of it. Quite good.
Right. Yeah, I mean it does good damage into pretty much any target, especially in this detachment, because like we talked about the stratagems, reroll wounds, you have strength 7, you have +1 from Eldrad. There's a lot of synergies that make this unit really powerful. So even if your opponent has a Chaos Knight on an objective, this unit can do some pretty severe damage to it if close enough.
Yeah, and actually, it makes these units are even better when you're running Shroudrunners and Warwalkers, which if you're running this detachment, you should be, because this unit that already does a lot of damage, it doesn't have a huge amount of AP, but once you add +1 AP to it, and then also ignores cover, then suddenly you're putting most things on their invul, and when they're taking like 30, 40 saves on their invul, they're going to end up taking a bit of damage, right?
Right.
So
Right, exactly. Absolutely. And that's not even accounting for the fact that, this unit can then charge you as well with +1 to wound, which doesn't seem great, but actually damage 3 singing spears are not bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
the damage 3 Singing Spears when you have +1 to wound, because it's still like 10 attacks, and they're no AP, but like when you get +1 to wound on it, even though they're strength 3, they're still going to be wounding you on 5s. Like if you're failing a save, it's going to be damage 3. So like boom, like you're going to lose some important model if you fail a save. So the unit is not good in combat, but like because of all the buffs you get, like you're very likely to have to take a lot of AP 0 saves that could do a lot of damage.
Right, absolutely. So you have the warlocks and all them, and the character warlock's pretty good too because you get -2 to charge on them, which is interesting. It helps you a lot into matchups with, 6-inch deep strike and charge is the thing
Yeah,
that comes to my mind. Death Guard, Tyranids with their subterranean, assault
indeed.
Ravener army that they now have. That's really good against those types of armies. What other units? Obviously, Guardians, Storm Guardians, and Guardian Defenders. But you know, we talked about Warwalkers
Besides
and
the
Shroudrunners. Yeah, besides the
yeah,
Guardian units, obvious, right?
yeah. So the Shroud Runners and Warwalkers are essential.
Mm-hmm.
Um, A, because you need them to like give you buffs. But B, it's also really funny because they both scout 10 and they move really far. So when you're deploying like 40 models in the middle of the board because they have infiltrate, then you scout up and then you have like over 1,000 points of things in the mid board before the game even starts. So it becomes. I remember. I think one of the first games I played, I was playing against a Death Guard player, and I think he had to concede turn 2 because I had completely screened out everywhere on the board except for the back of his objective, because I just had my units everywhere right away because they're just so fast.
Yeah. The power of the Eldar, dude. Just being so fast your opponent can't react. Yeah, that's funny because yeah, Death Guard really have no way to come back from that, do they?
Yeah.
Oh god. What do you think of Dire Avengers in this
Um.
detachment?
So if you're running only like 2 bricks, see like I think Dire Avengers are good, but like also you have the choice between Dire Avengers or also like Howling Banshees. Like what I'm thinking about Dire Avengers is either you run like Jane Czar because this army doesn't have any fights first, so
Hmm.
you could run Jane Czar and 5 Howling Banshees, or you could run like Asurmen and five whatever they're called, Dire Avengers. I think that low key, just because of how badly they nerfed Dire Avengers, probably taking a 10-man unit is just going to be too expensive.
Hmm.
And then also, if you want to buy like either a Falcon or a Wave Serpent for it, I think that's just going to be way too much points that you're taking from your army to put into like a unit that you could be putting into a Guardian brick. But like if you're just taking a Sermon and like 5 Dire Avengers, that could low key be pretty good. I know I've seen some people like Lumen was talking about using it, and this guy that won the Copenhagen GT also played Sermon 5 Dire Avengers. It's pretty good. Because like that unit's hard to interact with, right? You can just stick them out, kill your opponents like little scoring units, and then just come back. And like, what are they? They can't do anything about it because you have move, shoot, move.
Right. You just do that every turn. True.
Yeah, and you have your hit on twos, and you have your +1 to hit, and you also have like the potential to use all those other stratagems on it, like the reroll wounds.
Right.
So it ends up being not bad at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Zerman's pretty good in combat himself. He can mix it up pretty well. Just
Yeah,
being
when you give
able
him reroll
to
wounds, it's very funny.
absolutely. Oh yeah, and +1 to wound against things like knights when he's wounding on fours. You know,
Yeah, I mean he's a monster in combat in this detachment.
yeah, he's really good. You save that aspect token, dev wounds. Like you said, he had his mini feet. Like he can really mess things up. I've had him kill. No joke. I've had him kill a Mutalith Vortex Beast by himself, basically. Just rolled
Yeah,
five
he's
sixes on his feet turn, just Yahtzeed that motherfucker, and boom, like that thing was dead. Insane. I mean, obviously, no one rolls that well except for me, maybe. But it's amazing. So I definitely think he can do some work. But yeah, the 10-man unit might be a little much, for sure.
yeah, I think like he's good, but you also have other options, and I think like it's not an auto take like the Guardian bricks are, but I think like I'm just really not sure if I want to take that or like 3 Guardian bricks, like go down to 2, take that. Also I think Jane Czar is a good support for this attachment, which really has no melee support. Jane Czar is just like amazingly good. So like you can't go wrong with like a really good fights first unit, right?
Right.
For 200 points. So uh and then also, like, I know Jay's been taking warp spiders just purely for their secondary actions. And it's important to note that because like the Guardian bricks take up so much points, that you don't actually have a huge amount of secondary scoring. And really like all the secondary scoring I'm getting is from like my extra Storm Guardian units that I take. I think in the RTT I played, I ran 5 of them. So I was just doing my actions with my Storm Guardians.
Right.
But obviously the warp spiders are faster at doing that. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I know that like people have different tweaks that they use to the list to kind of like kind of match their playstyle. I really like warp spiders. Actually, in some of my iterations of this list, I had warp spiders for that exact reason because they're just really good at scoring. They're really good at screening, like in the mid game, like turns 3, turns 4. They're really good at
yeah.
just move blocking people because they're just fast, insane movement. So yeah, I definitely understand the warp spiders. Um, so when we're talking about like your specific build, the build that you use, could you kind of go through like the units you include in your army specifically, and then the strategies around how you play that army?
Yeah, well, I did want to mention one more unit first, which is my favorite unit in this detachment, and it actually gets no buffs from the detachment, and that's the Night Spinner.
Oh
The
shit!
Night Spinner is so funny in this detachment because your opponent is going to charge you at -4.
Interesting.
and they get -2 to move. You combine that with the you combine it with the -2 from the Warlock, right? And suddenly your opponent's charging you at -4. So they literally can't charge you unless they're 8 inches away, and they still have to roll 12.
Right. Wow,
Like
that's
it,
crazy.
I was using it a lot. It's kind of shifting away from a melee meta because of knights, but like when rushdown armies, and they're still good, are pretty popular, right? Like, or you're playing against slow armies like Death Guard. Like my friend who plays Death Guard, and he was the one who beat me by 1 point in the RTT. And he like whenever he plays against me, he was like, I can't rapid ingress against you with my Blight Lords because they literally won't get to go anywhere for the entire game, which is true. I played in my final round against a Deathwing Knights. He was running the new Dark Angels Detachment, right? And his Deathwing Knights just didn't go anywhere the entire game because I just shot them every turn. I was like, sorry, you're moving 3 inches and then you're -2 to charge. Like he just had to keep on advancing them.
That's funny. That's really funny, dude. Interesting, interesting pick. That's a very off
I
meta pick.
love the Night Spinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Really expensive model at 190, so I can definitely see
Yeah, it
why
is.
you can't afford more things in your army. But yeah, interesting. And actually, I mean, indirect kind of having some form of indirect in your army is kind of good, right? Because there's certain things opponents might take that indirect can just single out and kill, you know, and you can get away with it with a night spinner.
Yeah, it doesn't do an insane amount of damage. What I like to do is if I'm really trying to do damage with it, I mean, once I kill the opponent's long range stuff, it has a lot of range already, so I can use it. The biggest thing that it does is dissuades my opponent from rapid ingressing things, and then also, like, obviously helps with the melee rushdown.
Right.
Like, my opponent can be standing 1 inch away from me and still have to make a 5 inch charge.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. If you
Yeah.
think about it. Yeah, that's true. That's cool. I like the night spinner, so it's good to see it played. That's cool, man. Well, having said that, that is part of your army. What else do you have in your list?
So the list I played, and I'm tweaking it. I'm gonna try out. I've been trying out the 2 brick with Asurmen, but there's really not a huge difference. So the list I played was the 3 Storm Guardian bricks. They all have vibro cannons in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had 2 Shroud Runners, 2 Warwalkers, and the Night Spinner, and then I had 3 extra units of Storm Guardians. And it's kind of a pain in the ass to paint and build that many models because that's like a ton of models, and you also have to move all of them. It's a
Right.
lot of stuff. I felt like I was playing Imperial Guard, um, but yeah, I mean, you just like have a lot of board pressure because you just have so much shit on the board and it's really fast. And also like you have 5 sticky objective units, so and the other thing is that since the Guardian units are so big, you can kind of just string like one of your like pistol Guardians back and then move the rest of your unit like all the way up the board so that you can like touch a mid objective and then also kind of be in your opponent's deployment zone shooting stuff. And obviously it has good Overwatch, so you're threatening Overwatch. I play incredibly aggressive with it, so I just like to run at my opponent because uh unless they have like a crazy good uh like anti-infantry unit, then you can kind of just do whatever. A good example from my last game, Greg, if I don't know, I think maybe he's seen these he sees your videos occasionally, but I told him after he had a unit of Hellblasters that was, getting the sustained lethal a bunch of shots, right? And I told him obviously after I killed his unit, I was like, "Yeah, dude, I looked at your army and I saw that I just had to kill your Hellblaster unit and then you would never you would never be able to kill my Guardian units." So when you're playing, you just single out your opponent's units that can kill your guardians, and you just have to take them out or play careful with them. Obviously, if you're playing against a really good opponent, he's gonna know. But a lot of people have never played against this, right? So they kind of assume that, like, oh, like chip damage, like I can get them through chip damage. No, you literally chip damage does nothing to the guardian unit. You have to kill it all. You have
Right.
to kill it all in 1 turn, or you have to kill it all, then you have to charge it and kill it in you have to shoot it, then charge it, and make sure that they can't revive. And then also you're still going to be under threat of getting pistoled if you don't kill the warlocks.
Right.
So, and you also have to be aware that like your opponent starts shooting anti-infantry guns at you, you can just start taking saves on multi-wound models. Because you have 4 warlocks that you can take saves on, which each have 2. Then you have the 5 wounds on the support weapon, and you also have the support platform. I wouldn't recommend taking wounds on that right away because obviously you're going to lose out your 5 up invul. But you have a lot of options for like dispersing enemy fire to basically make it do nothing. So the units are really tough. And yeah, you just have to be aware of some. There are definitely units in the game, like mainly melee units, to be honest. There are not a lot of shooting units in the game that are going to be able to get around like the -1 to wound or the -2 to wound and all those. I think it's something like 39 wounds. So there's not a lot of units that can get around that in shooting, but in melee there certainly is. So you gotta be aware of the melee units. Hence why I like the Knife Spinner, because it makes the melee units a lot less of a threat when you make them a lot harder to get into combat.
Yeah, that also makes a lot of sense with the synergies that the rest of your army has. Absolutely. So tons of Storm Guardians in your army. You have the Vibro Cannons. One question about the Vibro Cannons: are they separated from the Storm Guardians, or can
No,
they
I put them in the
attach?
Storm Guardians.
Interesting.
They attach. Yeah, you can attach them. I attach them purely because they get, first of all, I mean, if I'm using like a stratagem on the unit, they're going to get the benefits of the stratagem, or right.
Right.
And then also because I mean it's a unit with like a lot of 1 wound models, so if they shoot anti infantry at it, then I'm just going to start taking wounds. Like, oh, the first 5 saves I fail on my unit when you're shooting 1 wound or 1 damage guns is just going to go to killing 1 vibro cannon, which doesn't really impact. I mean, like, if you end up being able to set up all of your vibro cannon shooting at 1 unit, it's gonna end up doing a lot of damage. I mean, you're rolling a d6, right? So maybe not, but
Right.
the d6 shots. But you could end up spiking and doing a ton of damage. Like, you could kill like a dreadnought pretty easily, especially with the +1 to hit.
Right.
Um, so, but I mainly take the vibro cannons just to make the units more annoying to kill. I saw Keeley, the guy that won this GT recently, he was taking D cannons, which makes sense, especially because it's pretty funny when you can Overwatch with your D cannon on a 4. Um,
Yeah.
you can infiltrate it, then Overwatch with the 4, and like if you get like kind of lucky, you're like, sorry, like I just insta killed your unit. Um,
Right. Like,
so D cannons
yeah.
are certainly viable. The ones that I think are the worst are the Shadow Weavers, because they're just like a little more expensive and just do less damage.
Yeah, I think they're kind of lame. I think the effect is cool, but it's only on ones. And it
Yeah,
reminds me of the old OG Night Spinner rule back in like fifth
yeah,
edition.
yeah. I agree.
And it's just it doesn't work anymore, man. It was good in fifth edition, but not anymore when models are multi-wound and like all that stuff. It's just not as good. So yeah, fun rule, but just not that great, honestly. Most
Yeah,
against most armies. I think it's really good against things like, Green Tide. It's beautiful, beautiful, but against everything else,
I
it's
agree.
just whatever. And okay, so
Yeah.
you got the support weapons. I'm assuming you take a Zerman with some Dire Avengers.
Well, in that list I was talking about, that's all I had. It's just the bricks are like 400 points, dude.
Oh
You don't have
wow,
a lot of points, which
tons
is
of
hence
bricks.
why I'm
Yes,
kind of transitioning because I want to keep the Night Spinner. I could put a Sermon and Dire Avengers if I got rid of a Night Spinner, but I like the Night Spinner, so I want to keep it.
right.
So I opted to drop my one of the bricks,
Hmm.
and then I put in. Well, right now my on my list it has Jane Czar because I'm testing her out. But yeah, a sermon, and then you could put in like a fire dragon squad because you're losing a lot of anti tank when you remove 1 brick. Um, and then you could take like a fire dragon or 2. I know some people in our server are running 2. Or you could take warp spiders for points because you do not have a huge amount of units that are going to be doing actions because like even though you have the shroud runners and the war walkers, in order for your big units to do damage, you need to tag stuff with them first. So you
Hmm.
can't really be doing actions,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
too bad.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? That the army is kind of action prone. Like,
Yeah, I
uh,
think that's the biggest weakness actually is that you have so many units, but they all actually need to be doing stuff other than actions for your army to function.
right.
Which I haven't really run into huge amount of problems with that, to be honest, because like normally I can kind of jail my opponent away from like the rest of like most of the board, honestly, so that I mean, obviously it depends on what armor you're playing against, right?
Hmm.
But like usually you can kind of take control of the center board really easily, and you also don't even really have to like hold the objectives because you have sticky. I mean, obviously if you want the +1, but you also do have a Farseer in there, so you can just get the +1 to hit that way. Um, but yeah, you can really take control of the board, so you can have your like few units you have to do actions be pretty much completely safe.
That's interesting. Yeah. I never really thought of it that way because I've never used the Storm Guardian units as a jail unit, but yeah, I guess you're right. I guess if you load up a Storm Guardian unit with a bunch of warlocks and stuff like that, and you could definitely make them hard to deal with. What's
Yeah, it's a
your
big unit. You move block with it. It's hard to kill. Overwatch threat. I mean, it's at least for like 1 or 2 turns, your opponent's gonna have to deal with that unit before they go out. So,
yeah, even if you go second, you know?
mhm.
Which yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. Pretty cool. Um any other tips or strategies on how people should think about running Guardian Battlehost?
I'd say it doesn't really play like Eldar. So that's like probably the biggest. I think a good reason that, or yeah, it's a good reason that a lot of Eldar players are transitioning to like Warhost and Aspect Host and Seer Council is because, and not this one. And obviously they're all good, but it's just because it doesn't play like Eldar traditionally play. It's not really glass cannon. It's not really like you don't have fast elite units that you move around the board and like you have to play like, oh, I can't let my opponent shoot me and stuff. It doesn't play like traditional Eldar. It kind of plays more like fucking like it's like a fast tanky shooting army. Kind of plays like Tau maybe. But yeah, it's definitely a different way to play Eldar. It doesn't function the same as any of the other detachments. So you just got to think about board presence, like a lot of move blocking, screening, just basically making your opponent not really be able to do a lot. And obviously, the number one important thing is to make sure that they're not going to be able to fully kill your guardian units. Because as soon as you lose those guardian bricks, your army like essentially falls apart. So you need to be able to pick them up. So like the best way you can do that is just make sure that you focus your opponent's units that can kill your stuff in one go. And also, you do have your little reactive move for shooting, which is nice. But yeah, you just need to focus on not letting your guardian units full die. They can take as much damage as they want as long as you can, kind of keep one. The other thing is that it's good to know that like even if you have just one of those Warlock Conclave units, you can get the whole unit back. But the guardian, the Warlocks don't come back, and that the Warlocks are a huge amount of your damage. So it's like it's a tough compromise to make, but you still got to kind of do it because I mean, like, well, you need your units, right?
Right.
Like, they're one thing I remember doing when I lost a guardian unit, and this was the closest game I had with my Death Guard friend, is I just let my guardian unit like almost die, and then I picked it up, and then I waited a couple turns, and then we were playing Scorched Earth, so I waited, and then I finally got the ability like at turn 3, right after I'd killed all the stuff on his home objective.
Hmm.
I just put him down, like kind of like an uppy downy unit. Because when you get into the later stages of the games, you're just not gonna have like your full guardian unit anyways. And if you need to play for points like that, you can just start using your guardian units as uppy downy units to do actions or to do like uh yeah, just score points.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that's a super powerful stratagem. Like it's an uppy downy and a revive that revives all your guardian models.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
No
cool
deep strike,
stratagem.
but it's good enough, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, turn 3 you can come in on the backboard edge. So you just wait for that opportunity and then, play for turns 3, 4, and 5, which make a lot of sense for Eldar anyway.
Yeah. And if you can keep your opponents because you have like so many units with sticky, it you don't actually even have to be on the objectives to like get your points because you have so many of those units. Like you can kind of just keep your opponent off of the objectives while not actually being on them. And you can still get most of your buffs just because you have Farseers.
Right.
So you have like the ability to play the jail a lot better because you don't have to have your army on those center objectives.
Yeah. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you've certainly taught me a lot about Guardian Battlehost, and I hope more people play it because it's honestly awesome. I think maybe one of the barriers to entry on Guardian Battlehost is having enough Guardians.
Uh, I think the worst barrier is having enough warlocks. Those
Oh, yeah.
shits, I can tell you that I had my friend 3D print them for me.
Hmm.
I had 4. I had them 3D print 12 because I was running all 15. If you were buying those from GW, I think you're paying like 600, 700 USD. It's
Oh,
ridiculous.
that's horrible.
So
Yeah.
like I know Jay was just running, he had a bunch of old metal warlocks, I think.
Hmm.
So, but like I think the biggest barrier to entry to this army is literally just the money.
Right.
Because like I already had a lot of Guardian units, but I still had to buy. I bought 2 more Guardian units, and then my friend gave me one of his Guardian units, so I could run 5 Guardian units. You just need like a lot of shit, and it's really expensive, to be honest.
Yeah, it does seem like that. It does seem like that. And it's really you're only going to use that many models in this detachment. So it's very, very
Yeah,
narrow. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So like when if Guardian Battle Host gets nerfed, then well, I'm not really worried because I didn't have to spend too much money. Right, I got the Warlocks for free. I spent like money on 2 Guardian units. I mean, Guardian units are always going to be useful. But yeah, if you're like just coming at this from a competitive perspective and you're willing to spend the money, then yeah, it's a great army and really fun to play. Play it on TTS free, very fun. But when you're like, oh, this looks like fun, but I'm kind of a casual player, or maybe I don't have enough money. No, it's not worth it. Just play one of the other detachments. Because it's just really expensive, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Or if you have a 3D printer, just burp,
Yeah, if you have a
just
3D printer, you can do it.
just print them on out. Yeah, exactly. Like, but otherwise, yeah, don't buy from GW. It's just there's such a ripoff for those warlocks. I bought one pack of warlocks. I already had a couple like flying around, and that was basically what I invested in warlocks, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not
Yeah, it's
gonna
just not
do
financially
anymore.
viable, man. It's
Yeah,
pretty funny though.
absolutely. That's funny, man. All right, man. Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your insights about Guardian Battlehost. Definitely let us know how those tournaments go. We'll have you on the channel again, and hopefully you can talk about your experiences. Because really cool detachment. I really love to see it played, and I want to see it played more competitively. So yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
I'll definitely be playing it at least until the next balance data slate. And if it escapes nerf from the next balance data slate, then you'll probably see me play it at Worlds. So,
That'd be
um,
fantastic. That'd be fantastic.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, Hayden. Anything else you want to add before we go for today?
Subscribe to Proxy Hammer, probably.
Like and subscribe. It's funny. I never say it, but yeah, I mean that would help for sure. All right, man. Thanks, and just want to thank all the patrons out there who've supported the channel over the last 2 years. You guys are awesome. We're almost to 3 years, if you can believe it, on the channel. So, good hallmark coming up here in October. So look forward to that. And yeah, thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.